Alright, so the dream of most ball python breeders is to actually produce something brand new that has never been seen in the ball python industry. I know a lot of people, that's pretty much all they focus on, and when I started breeding ball pythons, I never even dreamed, never even set out to produce something brand new. But last year, I actually popped out this very unusual snake that has never been really seen before. I've actually never seen anything like it, and I've posted some pictures on the internet, and at first people thought it was an unusual Het Pied, and now that it's got a little bit of age to it, it's actually bringing in a lot of yellows and a lot of different colors and patterns, which is really interesting. I think there's more going on than just a straight Het Pied on this snake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that unusual snake. I want to show you the parents that it came from. I'm thinking this might have come from my female normal. Essentially what I did is I crossed a Coral Glow 100% Het Pied. I crossed it to a normal female, and that normal female looks like it has some interesting patterns to begin with. I thought maybe when I actually bought that normal, I can't remember what I paid for it, like $100 or something like that, and you never know what you're going to get when you start buying snakes. There can be some other things in there, and come to find out, I think there's something unusual going on with that female. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is there's over 300 different morphs on the market already. Maybe it's something already out there that I'm just not seeing, maybe not familiar with. There's a lot of genes that are really subtle, and unless you're really an expert on that particular morph, you won't see it. So I kind of want to get your opinion to see if this is something maybe already out there on the market, or maybe it's something brand new that I'm working on. It's a pretty interesting project either way. So let me show you that unusual snake. Alright, so this is the snake I'm talking about, and just for reference, what I want to do is I want to show you a regular, typical, normal ball python. So this is completely normal color and pattern, and take a look at this one, how bright it is. It's really super bright yellow. It's definitely something completely different. Definitely doesn't have any pastel or in it, because really there's no pastel from the pairing. And if you take a look at this thing has some crazy colors and patterns. Look at the line right down the top, which is kind of interesting. And on the sides, it has a lot of white coming up the bellies, and a lot of, instead of alien heads, it has like little keyholes, which is kind of interesting. You take a look at this side over here. It is a really unusual snake. I would say there's really nothing quite like it that I've ever seen on the market that is really that much different. These guys are getting away, crawling out of the tub. They're kind of freaking out. But these guys, all right, let's see if I can keep them in the tub here. But I want to show you the belly on this one. So I'm pretty sure this one is Het Pied. It actually has a 50% chance of being Het Pied from the pairing, because the male Coral Glow was actually 100% Het Pied. That actually came from the pairing between the Coral Glow and the normal. So what I'm going to do now is that I've showed you this normal, kind of crazy looking normal dinker, some kind of a weird gene on this one. What I want to do from here is I want to show you the female compared to this normal, because the female that this came from is quite a bit different than a regular normal. It has some different patterns and colors on it, and it's pretty incredible that there's quite a bit of difference between this snake and a normal. It's pretty amazing what the difference is. So let me show you the female that actually produced this crazy looking snake. Alright, so take a look at this. This is the female right here. And when I first got this female, I thought there was something going on with this female. And some people thought it almost looked like a chocolate or something. It has some highlights kind of in here. It has definitely more of a chocolate color than just a regular ball python, which is kind of interesting. You can definitely see there is a difference between these two snakes. So this is the mom here, and look at how reduced the pattern is compared to the regular normal here. This is just a regular old normal. These snakes, they are trying to get away from me. They're definitely going crazy here. They're not used to being under the bright lights of the camera, I don't think. So you can definitely tell the difference between this one that produced that crazy looking snake versus this normal right here if you can actually see them without them crawling away and going crazy. My, these guys aren't really used to being handled a whole lot. Obviously, you can definitely tell. But you can see there's definitely a difference between these two snakes. Alright, so here is the mom and the dad of that crazy Dinker Project snake. So essentially this is just a straight Coral Glow 100% Het Pied. And the funny thing is about this one is that the pattern is not really regular and repeating like you'd see in a lot of the other Coral Glows. It seems like, I actually thought it was coming from the Coral Glow at first, because it seems like half the babies that this produces are pretty much a repeating pattern, and now I'm thinking maybe that the repeating pattern is really from the snakes that actually don't get the Het Pied. I'm thinking maybe the Het Pied is kind of jumbling up the pattern where it's not quite as like normal and repeating as a regular Coral Glow. And then I'm thinking now, actually, for the longest time I was thinking it was coming from my Coral Glow, and now I'm actually eyeing this female normal, thinking that, hey, there's something going on with this normal. I don't think this is just a straight normal. I think there's something else actually in here. Because the funny thing is I bred this Coral Glow to a lot of snakes last year and a lot of snakes this year, and I have yet to see another kind of a Dinker Project that is similar. And this girl laid 2 clutches of eggs, and that's the only one out of the 2 clutches that I actually produced. So it's kind of interesting. The other thing that it could possibly be is if that's a new gene, maybe both of these are Het for a recessive gene, and they just happen to come together in that particular snake. Maybe that is like the recessive visual, which is kind of interesting. So I just thought it was an interesting project, and I thought I'd share it with you. Alright, so I just wanted to give you one quick last look at this very unusual snake, and it's really quite impressive. I've never seen anything that is even really come close to anything like this. The pattern is really quite jumbled up. I'd say it's, I've actually seen some Het Pieds where it jumbles up the pattern, but not quite as bright and yellow as this. And you can kind of see right on the belly is white, and you can see the yellow really comes in right on the sides. Really crazy looking. I've never seen anything quite like it. It's pretty amazing. And essentially what I'm going to do is I was actually thinking about breeding this back to my Coral Glow, because my Coral Glow is a male, this is a female, and I could breed them back and try to produce what I thought was a super. But now I'm thinking if it's coming from my normal female, essentially what I'll have to do is I'll have to breed this with something else to produce one that looks like this, only it's a male, and then breed that back to the female normal and try to go that way. So if the female normal has something weird, I'm not even sure if it's codominant, or I'm not even sure if it's genetic. so sometimes you can actually get a weird ball python like this, and I've actually seen people back in the days of the ball python craze where they spend a lot of money on something like this, and it actually doesn't prove to be genetic, and it just pretty much flops. So it's possible it's just a weird looking Het Pied normal looking snake, and then they're actually, it's possible that something else could be in there. And if there is something in there, is it possibly Het Pied? Is it recessive or codominant or dominant, or what is really going on with this snake? I have no idea. Or is it multiple genes, or is it something that is a really slight modification that's codominant that happens to interact quite dramatically with the Het Pied? So there's a lot of questions as far as exactly what's going on with this snake. But I think it's probably one of the most exciting things in the ball python industry is finding something new that no one's produced, and there's a lot of potential. You mix it with the right genes sometimes, and it really pops. And sometimes some of these sleeper projects go pretty much unnoticed until they're mixed with the right genes. Like maybe this particular morph, it's so subtle, maybe it only expresses itself well when you mix it with the Het Pied, which is really kind of crazy. It almost looks like a tropical tiger or something, some kind of a tropical wild animal or something. It is a really wild looking. I love the colors and the patterns, but I just thought I'd share. It is a pretty unusual snake. All right, so when we're talking about proving out dinker projects, what you really need to think about is you need to start with a hypothesis. And my hypothesis this year is I'm assuming that it's a new gene. I'm assuming that it is co-dominant, that 50% of the babies are actually carrying it. And I'm assuming that the only time it really expresses itself is when the new gene is mixed with Het Pied. So from those assumptions, what I'm thinking about doing this year is breeding my visual pied male to that female, and if I could actually produce a whole clutch of 100% Het Pieds with that gene, assuming it's co-dominant, 50% of the babies would come out looking like that crazy dinker project. So you know what I'm doing this year? I'm definitely going to breed a visual pied back to that female, see if I can produce some more of these unusual looking snakes. And really, what would really be awesome if I could produce a visual male, something that looks really impressive in a male that I could breed back to this female, because females usually take about 2 or 3 years before they lay eggs. This one's already got a year behind it, so it's only another year or 2 before it'll lay eggs. So I'm gonna need to figure out how to get another one, preferably a male, that I could breed back to that one to produce maybe a super, which would be kind of cool. Of course, if they're both Het Pied, you might end up with some pies with the super on top of it, which would be kind of interesting. So you guys ready for this? It is time for the question of the day. And Impressive Investor asks, so would you recommend a ball python for family with toddlers? What if it escapes? And I would say that is a very good question. Thank you for asking. And I would say, ball pythons are pretty harmless. I would say with supervision, it would be safe with a toddler. As a matter of fact, if you had toddlers, I would highly recommend buying a hatchling ball python, because by the time the hatchling is 6 or 7 years old, like Bobby here, it would probably be, your kids would probably be teenagers by that time, and you wouldn't have toddlers unless you're planning on more kids. And in that case, I would definitely have a secure enclosure and always supervise young kids and toddlers with snakes at all times. I'd definitely not wrap a snake like this around the neck of a toddler. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is the perspective, from the main media and the people that are against pets and the people that are terrified of snakes, especially people that are influential. You really have to be careful, because I've seen organizations come in and raid a house and take all their snakes, and one of the main arguments was they had this free roaming snake in the house with the toddlers. And let me tell you, if you have a hatchling ball python and a toddler, I'm betting the toddler will probably do more damage to the snake than the snake could actually do to the toddler. But it's coming from people who are terrified of snakes, and they get the wrong impression, hits the main media, then it kind of blows up that way. So I'd think twice about getting snakes with toddlers. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.